meeting as indicated in the agenda. If everyone will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sure this, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chambers, if you call roll call. Here.
Ms. Parker.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Ms. Pavlik.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait, I didn't hear my name.
Yours was the first.
Oh, I answered.
I think Valerie answered for me.
Okay, well,
I'm here.
You can answer here.
Did he go in alphabetical order this time? Are there? Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Are there any additions, removals, modifications to the agenda? No? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sable.
And good evening, everyone, virtually. We have two action items for this evening. Both of these action items are resolutions related to the COVID-19, as well as the closing of schools. The first resolution, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution directing the superintendent and treasurer to take all actions necessary to reimburse all parents, guardians, the amount they paid, whether in full or in part, for their students' spring pay-to-participate fees for the 2020 spring season due to the COVID-19 health crisis. And we would like to provide fee refunds to our families. The way we anticipate it working is that parents will request a refund through our athletic director, Todd Hotke, simply through sending him an email. We have a communication pending board approval of this item to go out to our families so that they have that information. If we do not hear from a family regarding their need or want to have a refund, they will be credited those dollars into next year. So they'll basically roll over into next year. The second resolution is our authorization to pay. The board authorizes the superintendent and treasurer to pay employees, long-term and building substitute employees and contracted employees for the workdays during the period May 4th, 2020 to May 29th, 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic closure as deemed necessary. The board approves to continue to pay the ESC for contracted employees. As such, employees are expected to be available and on call and report to work as directed by their supervisor. Additionally, the board authorizes the superintendent and treasurer to pay all 2020 spring season co-curricular contracts. This is a very similar resolution that the board has passed twice We've done it for a month's period of time, hoping that we were going to be able to get back to business as usual. That hasn't happened, so we've now taking it back to you for the third time, which will close out the school year. In addition, what's been added, well, I want to real quick, with ESC employees, just so you understand the importance of this, our ESC employees have played a vital role since the COVID-19 closures, and a good part of those employees actually work with Mr. O'Cole and the technology department and in the distributing as well as the upkeep of close to, if not up to 900 Chromebooks. In addition, we also have all the high school ones that were out there, so they had quite a task at the end of this year. So I wanted to make sure they got credit. In addition, I'm asking for authorization to pay all of our spring co-curricular contracts out. These co-curricular contracts are per the negotiated agreement. I know that a question that has come up and has been discussion amongst school districts across the area is how to handle these co-curricular contracts. And the reason why is because, well, first of all, when you talk about co-curricular contracts, it doesn't specifically just mean athletics, but it clubs and activities as well. In addition to that, these co-curricular contracts went into effect and employees started working prior to the closure. As the closure occurred, these employees worked in various capacities during the closure period. For instance, our curriculum coordinators, or CDCs, have been working very hard to support our staff and our online programming. Where I've heard concern and some conversation mostly come up towards is with the spring athletics. I do think it's important that the board knows that those spring coaches did serve several weeks of their actual athletic season. In addition, many of them continued working with their student athletes throughout the closure. Just last week, I saw one of our coaches had produced and had, I think he ran it as a live session, but did a workout for his athletes to keep them engaged and in shape. And I know we've had many other coaches who have done similar things to keep athletes engaged, whether it's providing them with running and fitness plans for track, or whether it's been providing them guidance during this difficult time through being an important contact. As we head into the fall, and we don't know yet what the fall year is going to bring us, it is my intent to delay making recommendations for the fall. One of the things with these spring contracts is it was unanticipated that schools were going to be closed. So we were in a difficult position in handling these contracts, especially when they already started. With not knowing what the fall is going to look like and what fall sports are going to look like, I've already had conversations with Mr. Hodke, our athletic director, about delaying the recommendation of those fall supplemental contracts to the board until we have a better understanding of what we're looking at in terms of the fall sports season. I still anticipate recommending other supplemental contracts, such as our CDCs, because again, they play an important role with leadership and guidance as we move through all this process. Any questions?
Yeah. Aaron, as far as those co-curricular contracts, is it just the athletics? Because what about the clubs? If school is delayed for the start and the clubs are as well, will you hold off on those?
Yeah, and the club contracts are actually a little bit different. The club contracts, many of them are paid through the fundraising that the organization does because they're a club status. So we will have conversations with those individual clubs and the people who organize that. I'm sure Mason will be the one working on that in order to coordinate those seasons. But yes, we're going to delay those as well if the fall season's delayed.
You bring up a good point about fundraising. Will those fall sports, will they be able to fundraise? Will we allow them to fundraise?
I think that's a good question. And to be honest, it's a conversation we really haven't gotten into quite yet. I can't give you an off-the-cuff answer. Depending on what the orders are out by the governor as well as the state health department, that'll impact what fundraisers we do have and if we have them. If social distancing is still in place and currently no more than 10 people can be in one location, that's going to limit the kind of fundraisers that can occur. So if we did have any fundraisers happen, we would ensure that they met all of the requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Aaron, I have a question for you.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to make a motion to accept these action items before further discussion.
Wait, before we do that, I have a question.
Typically, our policy is that, and our procedures are we make motions to accept and then we have discussion.
Yeah, I think I jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, good point. I'll second.
Okay, now go ahead for discussion. Go ahead, Ron.
Don't we have to vote on that?
No, now it's up for discussion.
Okay. So, Aaron, I just want to let.
I went out. Who made a motion?
I did, Becky.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Okay. So my question was to Aaron. I struggle with the co-curricular, especially with the coaches. And I want to make it clear, this has nothing to do with our coaches, because our coaches are good people and they've really stepped up. So I want to leave them out of it. It's just the point of the matter is I struggle with, that the world is struggling out there. And I have a hard time looking at the taxpayers who are struggling. And then we're saying there's no sports, but we're paying the coaches. I just have a hard time with that. In addition, we're paying back all the pay-to-play fees, which means it sounds like there is no season, but yet we're paying the coaches, saying almost like that they would be getting paid for a season. I don't think that that's very consistent, and I struggle with that.
If I could jump to one of the thoughts with that, Ron, is along the lines that it was a contracted for item. And instead of that coach doing something else in the spring season that they could have done, instead of taking other secondary employment that wouldn't have impacted their schoolwork, for coaches that are teachers, and we have some coaches that aren't teachers, but so they were under contract to do that job and have made themselves available this spring. So if you look at it that way, and I think from what Aaron said, probably 98% of them have actually done quite a bit of services this spring, maybe 100%. And maybe Jeff probably knows a lot about that too. I see Jeff's on our call, but I share what you're thinking, Ron. And we spent some time just with Valerie and I and Aaron talking and Dave talking about this Friday. And but Aaron, I think you indicated it's very consistent with what most of the districts are doing at this point.
Yep, that's correct. And another piece of the conversation that we've had as superintendents in the area is the role that a school district plays in relation to the economy. And when we have these contracted positions that people were planning on filling, some of whom rely on that additional salary or that additional money as part of their salary, is it the best thing to prevent money from going out to staff so it can feed back into the economy, especially when so many of our teachers and coaches live right in the community?
Well, so there's nothing in those contracts that would say there is no spring sports, not necessarily for a pandemic, but for anything, a tornado, or there's nothing in there that says if spring sports are canceled, here's what happens to your supplemental salaries. There's nothing like that.
There's nothing like that in any of our contracts. I do think, though, as we negotiate new contracts, from what I'm hearing from other districts, we're probably going to start seeing some of those kinds of language showing up in negotiated agreements in the future.
All right. I still struggle with it. I don't know. It's just what's inside of me. I think some of the coaches, I would even venture to say, if you ask the coaches, the ones that I know, like Scott Van Fleet and Mill Place, even maybe Jordan, if you ask them, I would venture, and I'm not going to speak for them, but I would venture to say that they would tell you, we're not coaching, we don't get paid. Just simple as that. I would bet that that's what they would say, but I don't want to.
And the only other thing I'd throw out there, this is an employment matter, so I don't know if we are going to discuss specifics, we probably should go in executive. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, do we have to vote on this tonight? Is that what this is? We're going to vote on this? All right.
Aaron, has there been any discussions with the coaches about continuing some type of involvement through the rest of May, whether it be providing conditioning, drills, anything like that and I'm sure it would help Ron, that they're actually putting in some hours in exchange for that pay?
Yeah, I don't know what discussions Mr. Hotke has had for the remainder of the season, but I do know many, if not most of our coaches have been doing that. And the other piece, if there is a coach that feels like they haven't fulfilled their duties, I would encourage them. They have the opportunity to donate that money back to the district or the school foundation.
I would like to chime in here for a moment, as I do have a son who was to participate in the track season this spring. And I can tell you that the coaches have been in contact. Coach Stepsis reaches out to the athletes and the parents at least weekly with an email and an update. And the student athletes have still have the opportunity to participate in workouts. The coaches have been providing workouts to them and have mentioned continuing doing that through what would be their spring season. Again, I'm just speaking for track and my own experience. Coach Stepsis also put together a virtual senior banquet video that he sent out to the parents this weekend. So they've been putting time in, Ron, prior to this happening and since it has been happening.
I do know too, Ron, that with the spring coaches, their preseason starts back, in February-ish type, as far as, some preseason conditioning too. So even though the official start to spring sports is March 1st, there's some activities going on in the background that the coaches have been involved with. So that's why I hear what you're saying, but I'm fairly comfortable with the proposal, with the resolution.
Yeah, but we did pay our coaches for March and April. This resolution is only for the month of May. Is that how that is? Is that how it's working?
No, this is to pay out those contracts.
Ron, those contracts are typically paid upon the season completion. So they wouldn't get these monies until the end of May or postseason.
Okay, but all right, but if you read the resolution, it says substitute and contracted employees for the work days during the period May 4th to May 29th.
Okay, these are two different resolutions. The first one I'm sorry, I take that back. You're right, you're correct.
It looks like it's for the co-curricular.
The co-curriculars, it says additionally, so it's added as an additional item. The board authorizes the superintendent treasurer to pay all 2020 So it's the full contract, spring season co-curricular contracts.
Ron, do you feel that those two should have been broken out separately?
I would think it should be, because we're talking about an educational piece and an athletic piece in a sense, but I don't know, maybe Rob can try.
No, if we've done this in the past, then let's just make a new motion and a new second and just do the first one and let that first one die. You know, we can just do that. So I'd make a motion that we approve the first pay to participate reimbursement.
I'll second that.
Okay, and you're talking about the first one is just for building, long-term and building substitute employees and contracted employees?
No, we're talking the pay to participate reimbursement that the students paid for the spring seasons, to reimburse that back to the families if they so choose, or they can roll that over to next year if they're underclassmen or juniors.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Okay. So for the first one, we've had the first, we've had the second. Amy, are there any public comments for that first one?
No comments.
Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Chambers, will you call roll for the first for the authorization for reimbursement of pay to participate?
Yes, Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Mr. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Let's see, Ms. Parkhurst
Aye.
and Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Okay.
So I believe, Rob, what,
I was going to say, I believe we have to close the first motion that was out there.
I think in the past we've let it die. I mean, we could just I'd make a motion that we authorize on the second one. I make a motion for number 2.
We already had a motion and a second for the original, so I believe we have to close it out before we could go ahead and
Well, that's not what we've done in the past, but that's fine. I'll do it however you want. But that's not what.
let's close it out first, okay? So we had a motion and a second for both items. Inside that, we had a motion for just the first item. So let's close out the motion in a second. Ms. Parkhurst made the motion and Mr. Ross made the second. So I think in order to close it out without any thing going on with it, you want to not
say
approve.
no, not approved? Okay.
Well, just you're not creating. I'm just the fear here, Dave, with the way you're handling this, you're creating confusion that we're negating. Dave.
Yes.
You're creating confusion that we're going to negate the action we just took. That's why it seems like we should let the second motion go, and then we can all vote on the third one and just vote present or something. But nothing in this motion is going to undo what we just did in number 1. That's why
In the past, I believe we have closed them out, Rob. We have done that in the past.
Yeah, we've always closed them out in the past.
I thought the other time, I thought it was a rush to have another motion and then move on. And then we just you let it fail when you had a first and second, you let it fail because it was moot after that.
So
Let's ask Jim.
All right, now I'm confused.
that's okay. We should have done, the first one, talked about it, approved it, and then moved on to the second, but there were motions to do both at the same time. So my question, Dave, is can we vote no on the resolution authorization to pay and then split it out, or do we split it first and then kill that combo?
Well, the motion was on both resolutions. And then you had a motion within the motion for the approval of just the first resolution.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
in order to close out the original motion on both resolutions, the motion within the motion will still take place, Rob. But in order to close out the original motion, you have to go ahead and take action on the motion itself.
And then can we make a motion to create a third resolution and a fourth resolution where we split those two apart?
Well, you already passed the motion to participate. That's
Well, on the agenda that I have, there's a 1 and a 2. There's
Correct.
a resolution for pay to participate reimbursement and a resolution for authorization to pay. Wouldn't typically we should have had a motion for just the pay to participate fees, done that, then had a second motion to do the authorization to pay?
No,
Right? That would,
no, they're not. They're part of the consent agenda. They're not broken out as separate. We don't have them listed as separate. Normally we break them out.
My understanding too, that Valerie has the right to be able to ask you to call roll. And if she doesn't call the roll on that and we move on, then that vote is moot. And I thought we had that one other time, Becky, that we had before, even though we had a first and a second. But
I don't believe the voter.
we're wasting a lot of time. We all know what we want to do. We want to pass, we want to have both of them go. So we just don't want to do anything to negate them.
The first resolution has been passed, resolution number 1.
Correct.
I think a board member can make a recommendation to vote on resolution number 2, and then we can move forward and then just treat them as 2 separates.
I would agree with what Aaron just said.
okay.
Let's just make a motion on number 2, second it, and then let's vote on it.
So those votes, though, in order to separate the two, in case somebody wants to vote yes to pay the contracted employees and no to pay the co-curriculars, correct, Ron? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I mean, it's worded all together, so we might as well just vote on it all together.
Okay, Ron's talking about something different than I was. I was talking about the pay to participate versus the authorization to pay.
Oh my God.
I was talking about the authorization to pay as well.
Yeah. Since it's worded the way it is, let's just vote on it. Number 2.
All right, I make a motion that we approve number 2.
There you go.
I second.
Any additional discussion on this? Amy, is there any public comment coming in?
No
Mr.
comment.
Chambers? Thank you. Mr. Chambers, if you'll call roll.
Mr. Skidmore,
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
No, for the reasons stated.
let's go, Mr. Hilberg,
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst,
Aye.
and Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Ron, you did bring up some very good points. Thank you for that.
Now, Mr. Chambers, if you want us to go back on the original, I would almost suggest a present vote instead of a no, because we don't want to negate anything we just did. Unless you just want to leave it go and we keep moving, which I'm okay with too.
Keep moving.
Yeah,
So if you don't call roll on it, it goes dead anyways.
Right. Okay, let's keep moving. Go ahead, Val.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Sable, I'll turn it over to you for the updates to the district.
Yep. First one is I just want to provide the board an update on COVID-19 legislation as it relates to the school district. There have been some adjustments since we last met. As I think everybody knows, the school year the schools were closed for the remainder of the school year with online learning going on through the remainder of the school year. As a school district, we are following our district calendar to ensure that we get the appropriate hours in for all of our students. The bulk of our students will be going through the last day of the school year, which I want to say is the somebody else throw it out to me, 28th.
Yes.
What's the last day of school? 28th, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, students will go through the 28th, except for our seniors. Our seniors will go through the 15th of May. I know there was a little bit of confusion about the...
May 14th is the last day for seniors. We don't want them to go any extra.
May 14th. I know there was some confusion about the end date amongst our seniors, and that's because typically that would have been exam week, and some of our students wouldn't have needed to take exams. However, to ensure that we have the appropriate seat hours for our seniors so they're eligible to graduate, we need them to go through the full days through May 14th. In addition, we received word that there's been an order from the state health department to not allow students onto school facilities through June 30th unless a school district coordinates with the health department and gets an approved plan to have those students come in. This has resulted in the OHSAA making a request with districts across Ohio to close all of their athletic facilities, indoor and out, through June 30th to ensure that students are not on school property. In my discussions with other school districts, every district I've talked to is following that guideline, and I anticipate we will as well. I have gotten a few questions from community members in regards to some of our outdoor facilities, and I have told them what the current orders are and let them know that we would communicate with the community when and if that occurs. The second item is student, parent, and guardian survey. And we sent out a survey to our parents and students to see how the online learning was going. We've got some rough data to share with you tonight. The survey actually just ended yesterday, but we thought it was important to get information out as soon as we can. We will have more detailed information regarding the survey at a later time, and we will make the results available on our website once we are able to work through the numbers for the community. So at this time, I want to ask Tina Cassidy, our Director of Instruction, to kind of share the overall picture of that survey.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and present. So I'm going to bring that survey up so that you can see the results of that. Okay, so we had a very good response to our parent online learning survey. You can see we had 1,806 responses total, and of those responses, 70% of those were parents and 30% were students. Grade levels, we asked them to specify what grade levels their students were in. So we had 1% response from preschool. We had a 23% response from K3 and a 12% response from 4-5. And the reason that we broke that out was because we asked the 4th and 5th graders to do a little bit more than the K3. And so when we were looking at work, we wanted to break that down. And so that's why it's broken out that way. Grades 6 through 8, 27% of the responses came from them, and 36% came from the high school. So our survey was broken up into 3 sections, and the first section was on teaching and learning. And our first question in that section was, which best describes how your child is adjusting to online learning? And as you can see here, about 85% of the respondents felt comfortable, or they at least felt like they were getting the hang of it. So that's good news. Is the amount of work being assigned by teachers too much, just right, or not enough? We had 61% feel like it was just right. 25% felt like the work that's being provided is too much, and 13% felt like it's not enough. So, okay, do you feel that office hours being provided to your children are a valuable tool? And you can see right here that overwhelmingly 3, 4, and 5 on that. So office hours are helping most students with their, or at least the respondents with their work. Which of these is your child using to complete their activities? A lot of students are using personal computers and district provided Chromebooks, and they were able to choose more than one. So in some cases, students were using multiple. The second section was on communication. And as you can see here, people feel very satisfied with the communication from district principals and buildings and teachers. So I think overall, we've done a pretty good job of communicating changes that have come up during this time. To what degree were you provided with sufficient information to support your students? Again, we had 90% of the people who responded give us a 3, 4, or 5. So we've been doing pretty good, I think, with giving information. The third category was family supports, and that was comments only. So we don't have any graphs to show you at this time. So what we're going to do next with this survey, we want to continue to drill down and get some further information. We'd like to separate it out between parent responses and student responses. How did the students feel about the work assigned? How did the parents feel about the work assigned? Those kinds of things. And we also want to look at grade levels. How did elementary students feel versus middle school or high school? There are over 1,000 comments on the teaching and learning section. So we want to go through those and make sure that we're considering all those suggestions. And we had over 280 comments on the family support section that we still need to comb through. But that was just some general information for you for right now. Any questions?
Was this survey, was it mainly pre-COVID or post-COVID?
This survey was about our online learning. So this was since we've been home in March, or from March.
People have completed it after the schools have been not open for instruction.
Right. I think Amy sent it out a week ago, right, Amy?
Okay.
Yeah, it's been about a week that they've been completing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rob, the deadline was just yesterday, I believe, for parents and students to complete it. That's very recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had about a week to complete it.
Yeah, I just wondered things like banding at the elementary level. Was that on there? Was that what you said at the end, banding, Tina?
No, all this survey has to do with is how we're performing as a district with the online learning environment in response to the COVID-19 closures. It has nothing to do with any of the other district initiatives.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
what I meant by that, Rob, was that I wanted to look at elementary to see how elementary felt like our online learning was going. I wanted to look at middle school to see how they felt, and I want to look at high school. So when I break it out, I'm going to look at grade level bands like that. That's all I meant.
Tina, are you drilling down to the grades themselves, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or you're just going to do it by elementary, middle, high school?
I'm going to do it by those grade bands. So I'll do K3 because that's one of the options that we gave them. So those are the ways I'll be able to drill down.
Okay, thank you.
Tina, is there any plan to get any feedback from the staff on how this is going?
Yeah, good question. So we just started a draft of a teacher survey today, and we're going to be working on that and hopefully sending it out sometime this week.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
And next up, number 3 on the agenda is in relation to our graduation plans. And I want to thank Mr. Harrison as well as the high school team for their work in preparing a graduation that's going to provide special moments for our students. As you know, that's quite a challenge when the traditional graduation isn't able to occur, but the work that's been done to reach out and involve our students in the process, I think has been admirable, and our students have provided great feedback. So at this time, I want to turn it over to Mr. Harrison.
Oh, good evening. It's nice to see everyone. Every opportunity we have to get together on Google Meet gives me an opportunity to see somebody outside of my own family. So it's nice to see the outside world a little bit. As Mr. Sable said, we've put a considerable amount of time and thought into graduation plan. And I guess I would first start out by saying, and I reminded the students of this when we met, is we're hearing a lot and we're seeing a lot, we're reading a lot out there about what schools are doing all across the country. But what we have to remember is what you could do with a school of 100 graduates is a lot different than what you could do with a school of 571 graduates. And right now, our roll for the senior class is 571. So that's the number of houses or stops we made last week with a senior sign and cap and gown and diploma cover. So understand that we have that hurdle to get over. And I've always said that our size is an advantage. It's not a disadvantage. So with that, we have the opportunity to be optimistic or pessimistic. So we're going to be optimistic, and we're listing 3 alternative dates for a traditional graduation. That would be June 11th, July 7th, and August 1st. All 3 of those dates have been on the calendar for some time. As soon as we went out of school, I had Mr. Brenner get in contact with our contact at the University of Akron and just pencil in some dates, because as we saw this extending and extending, we knew that we'd need an alternative to our May 23rd original graduation date. So we have June 11th, July 7th, and August 1st on the calendar. Now, as many of us know or believe, as those dates come and go, we may or may not be able to gather in large groups. And that goes back to my point about 571 seniors. Understand that we packed the jar standing room only. We're talking over 6,000 people at our graduation. So I don't think that our May 23rd date's going to work for in-person large group. It's going to be hard pressed for June and July even. But we also know that as students get further and further away from that May 23rd original date for graduation, the emotional side of it will begin to wean as they get further and further away from it, because all of them are going on to bigger and better things, be it the military, college, university, employment, whatever it may be. So even if we're able to gather in a large group or something that resembles a large group on August 1st, that in-person ceremony would be radically different than what we would have produced on May 23rd. And we know that, and we'll begin to plan for it, because we can't just pull those things off with a 2-day notice. So we have to understand that, and we put those dates out there to be optimistic and to provide hope. But at the same time, we need to be working in the background to give a appropriate send-off for the class of 2020. So that's what we're referring to as a blended graduation ceremony. And we use the word blended because it's not 100% virtual. It has some in-person pieces. So it can't be the traditional, and it's not going to be strictly virtual. So we'll refer to it as blended. So it all started last week, kind of, with us delivering the caps and gowns to our seniors so that they have those. Many parents had been calling and asking to get those caps and gowns for different picture and portrait purposes. So we delivered all of those to those students who had ordered them. Now, because plans have changed, there are some students who may have chose not to participate in our traditional graduation who may now participate. I will tell you that Jostens is a valued partner of ours. They're the ones that provide all of our caps and gowns and our graduation announcements. And John Armstrong, it lives in our community and had children go through our school district. They will be standing beside us to help provide caps and gowns for anybody who may not have ordered them now that plans have changed. So we will be able to take care of those students even if they didn't order a cap and gown. So last Friday was also the deadline for our seniors who were submitting speeches for graduation. We're still going to have our senior speeches. That will be part of that traditional piece that we'll have in this graduation. So tonight, after the board meeting, I know Amy has a press release that will go out. I also have the days and times for students when they're going to participate in this blended ceremony. So what we're looking to do is the week of May 11th. So one week from today, or actually 1 week from tomorrow, we will begin filming our seniors, our graduates. So we will have a detailed appointment for every senior. So the senior can come to the PAC with 4 immediate family members. It doesn't matter to me who those immediate family members are. They should be family members that they've been quarantined or living with to be safe. They will arrive at the PAC parking lot in their car where they will be checked in. We are going to have upwards of 16 of our staff members there to help coordinate all this because it's no small task. They'll be lined up in the PAC parking lot and they'll be instructed to stay in their car until they're called in for their appointment time. At which time we'll call in 3 to 4 families at a time so we can keep proper social distancing and protect everyone involved. All of our employees that will be there will be wearing masks and keeping their social distance as well. And the graduates will come in at 4 or 5 at a time. What will happen is once they enter the doors of the PAC, they're in the lobby. Students will head to the left, as you guys know it, towards backstage. The parents will head to the right out into the lobby of the PAC. The reason for that is we went through this process, and when we met with the seniors, they were very adamant about immediate family and parents taking part in the ceremony. And it was something that we as the adults planning it kind of overlooked. And it was nice to have the students' input so that we understood that importance. So we're going to use them because we also had gotten to the point was when we announce their name and they walk across the stage, what are they going to do? There's no board member to hand them a diploma because of social distancing. There's nothing like that. So what we've done is the students will come out onto the stage. The stage will be set up like it is at the University of Akron with all the appropriate decorations. A staff member who has always volunteered in the past will read the student's name. The student will walk across the stage. At the same time, the student's family will be on the other side of the stage and we'll meet them at center stage with their diploma. So the parents and family members are actually going to present the diploma to our graduates. At which time they will then look forward and we'll have a representative from Life Touch there to take a family portrait of the moment. It won't be like our traditional graduation photos that are really rushed and our hands get in the way and faces get blocked. There'll be a nice portrait that the school, Medina High School, will provide for each one of the graduates at a later time. We're going to provide 2 5x7s to every family as a keepsake for the moment. So after that portrait is taken, they'll exit the stage together and then head out through the back stage area. Parents will head out in the parking lot. Those 3 students will head into the little theater or the black box as it's known, where we will take a headshot video of them turning their tassels. And our friends at Channel 36 will be filming this throughout the process. And they'll use the magic and their techniques to spice it all together. So when they're turning that tassel 3 at a time, they'll put a montage of that together at the end of our virtual ceremony that will be viewed by everyone. So as the students leave the back entrance to the PAC, the senior class has actually purchased like 600 pieces of sidewalk chalk, and each senior can kind of leave a parting message, appropriate parting message, on the sidewalk of the PAC. And our friends at Channel 36 will even have a drone where we'll take an overhead photo of all those messages. Again, just using these pieces in our production that will be our blended graduation. So then they'll go back to their car and be on their way. Now, 571 seniors taking a couple minutes each to walk across this stage is going to take quite some time. So we're going to start on Tuesday, May 12th, and go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with scheduled appointments for each one of those seniors. Obviously, we know that someone may have a conflict arise. Some parents, I'm sure, have continued to work during this time. Some are returning to work this very week. So we understand that we may need to be somewhat flexible. But for our friends at Channel 36, we also need to try to stay as close to alphabetical order as possible, because as they put this video together, it's going to have the student's name across the bottom of the screen. And without a doubt, I know will be a professional production that they will put on, like many of the things that they do. So that's the graduation ceremony piece. And then don't forget, sometime in June, we will need to have a diploma distribution, because when we're filming this hybrid ceremony, we don't have all the requirements necessarily met by our seniors to graduate. So we'll need to distribute those diplomas later in June. We typically would do that behind the curtain at the jar after the ceremony's all over. We'll just have to do a drive-through type of situation later on, at which time they'll get their diploma, other pertinent information, as well as another gift from Medina High School. It's a USB drive. It kind of looks like your IDs, our school IDs, and a little USB drive flips out from the end of it that they'll have an HD copy of the ceremony after Channel 36 puts it all together. So they'll have that and the 2 5x7s as kind of a parting gift from Medina High School for the special occasion. So let's say we go through this, we pull off this blended ceremony, and then August 1st, they say we can gather as large groups. Well, at that point in time, we'll make plans to have some type of ceremony on August 1st. That's important to our seniors. It's important to our community, and we understand that. But at the same time, we need to be planning that we may not be able to gather as a large group for a traditional graduation ceremony. So that's a lot that I just threw at you. Know that we've been planning this for some time now, a small committee of people. We have adjusted it along the way. We are just about ready to send out the appointment schedule for our seniors. I'm working on it as the meeting's going on here. So we're well on our way. And Mr. Sable will have his address like normal. I will have my address at graduation like I normally do. I'm sure we're going to have pieces and parts that you as the Board of Education will be involved up to your comfort level. We want you to be involved. So I guess with all of that, I'll just open it up for any questions that you may have. Something I may have missed or wasn't clear about, I'd be happy to clarify for you.
Jeff, first of all, I want to thank you for everything you've done with the signs and going to the kids' houses. I think that's just wonderful. So thank you and your people for doing that, you and your staff. So that's very much appreciated. My only question is, you mentioned board involvement. What exactly would that be for this virtual ceremony?
Yeah, it could be a combination of things. Like I've said, we have the need for 16 bodies, we'll say it, to help just with traffic control and logistics on site at the PAC on each one of these days. And there's a couple locations that we could use a board member that would still have some interaction both with the graduates and the family. Not the handshaking and diploma distribution like normal because of the social distancing, but still have that interaction with our community that is important.
Yeah, and for the whole board, I'm going to, now that the schedule has been finalized in terms of the time frames, I think that just occurred today, as Jeff said, I'm going to provide that schedule to the board and then ask you guys to sign up or work out various times for you to be there. One thought that I had that would be great is for you to be at the end of the stage, and you can help direct the student across the stage. The other thing we had discussed, and I know I've talked to you about this, Ms. Pavlik, but having a short statement to our senior class from our board president. A couple of questions that come up I can handle here. I had it written down, and then I saw somebody post it in the Facebook. That is the first week for AP testing, and we are aware of that. So understand that when our senior schedule goes out, there are a few conflicts that we just haven't been able to tackle yet, and we'll tackle them on a case-by-case basis. One nice thing is Channel 36 is helping us out. They're our partners. They'll help us move kids around. I mean, I even had a conversation with a family today just to give you an idea how important this is to families, and I agree 100%.
I had a family this morning that the father works out of state and actually is home on vacation this week and is returning back to that out of state location on Monday. So we're going to try to do everything possible to be able to have that person walk the stage and do this process before dad leaves to go back out of state on Monday. And I know Amy hasn't heard that yet, and she's helping kind of set up the stage. But that's kind of, I mean, in the same breath, that family's kind of be our guinea pig to some degree. But we're going to make it happen. It's important for the kids. It's important for our community. I mean, now's the time to be flexible, so we're going to be flexible.
Jeff, thank you for the excellent work you've done putting this together. I know that, you know, a lot of us are realizing that you're making the best you can of a situation that's not necessarily ideal, but it sounds like you're going to make it a very special event for the kids, and that they'll get a really nice remembrance of it. And I'm looking forward to having you know, the other ceremony later as well. But we appreciate everything you've done and the extra effort to deliver things to people's houses. That goes a long way. And I think the whole board feels, I feel bad that there's certain things that aren't happening the way they traditionally have for kids. And the kids are doing such a great job at going along with everything that's happening and doing their part and trying to keep everybody safe. But we appreciate all of your efforts, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot more work than normal. And so we appreciate everything that you're doing with that, and for all of your staff that are working so hard to make this a very special event for people. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Rob. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, it is, it's definitely a team effort, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are going to help make this happen. And you know, we want to make it special. And we joke during our normal traditional graduation that, and this is just a joke, but we always talk about families. They're only concerned about hearing one name go across that stage most of the time. So this year, they're only going to hear one name go across the stage live, but then they'll get to watch, because our plan is to have all this together. And on our traditional date, which this year would have been May 23rd at 1 p.m., is when we will air the blended ceremony on Channel 36 and then Armstrong Cable 201 and whatever other channels they are, along with Facebook and YouTube. So people can still join as a family, I guess, and or friends, socially distanced, and watch the actual ceremony. And to someone watching the actual ceremony, it's going to play out just like our traditional one.
Jeff, I think that's a nifty idea that you came up with about the family member handing the diploma cover to their student, because that was something that I know a few of us were disappointed because normally the board members would be handing out that diploma cover. So I think that's an awesome idea that you came up with.
I have to give full credit to the seniors in the senior class, because they kind of were the ones that kind of brought it to our attention, because we kind of overlooked the family members because we were so focused on the students, and then they wanted their family to be part of it. And it kind of just solved our problem, because other than that, it was just walking across the stage that probably would have been very awkward for the student.
For sure. You mentioned that the employees who are there will be wearing masks. What about the student and the family? Because I know nobody wants to have their picture taken, especially a special picture like that. They want to see that the hair is done, the makeup is done for the girls, boys, well, not so much, but will they be allowed to forego the mask, or how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, and first and foremost, and thanks to Dr. Kwolek, we have been in constant communication with our county health director. So obviously all the plans that we have and everything that we're going to pull off on these days have been approved on the surface by her. So we will be following all of those guidelines. We also will be suggesting to our families that they as well follow those guidelines. But absolutely, when the student's walking the stage, getting the diploma, having the portrait taken, there is going to be no face mask in that picture. Some may want to, just as a further keepsake for the moment, but no, we will tell our graduates and family that when they enter the pack to walk the stage and to do that traditional process, that by all means they can take that mask off. But we would ask them as they're waiting, if they so choose, I mean, it is their right, they're so choose, if they want to wear a mask, that would be appreciated.
Okay, we could stock up on cans of Lysol, and one of us can follow and spray the air afterwards.
Yep.
I'm just teasing.
We'll have a sanitation. We'll have a station where there'll be different things to help with that process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is amazing what you have come up with, what everybody has come up with. Aaron, Chris, the students. Thank you. Okay.
I just have
Darn it. Yep.
So unrelated to our graduation, I know the Career Center kids are going to graduate in a couple weeks. Do you have any update on their ceremony and what's going to happen?
Unfortunately, I don't. I'm sure Aaron can fill you in. I know something's happened on June 14th, but I've kind of been a little preoccupied with ours, so I'm not up to speed on the Career Center.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in talking with Mr. Chrisman, it's my understanding that they're going to do a drive-through variety. They're very fortunate over there at the Career Center to have a lot of room to be able to have lines of cars. I don't have the details of what they're doing, but that's the gist of what he shared with me maybe about a week ago.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for what you're doing for our kids. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Sable, I believe next.
Yep. Next up on the agenda is academic and grade promotion recognition. And Jeff, you're welcome to duck out or stay if you want. It's up to you. Academic and grade promotion recognition. Obviously, everybody knows that graduation and honoring our seniors has been a priority. But I want the board to know, as well as our parents to know, that we have not forgotten about those special moments that occur at some of the lower grade levels, whether it's promoting up to the middle school or whether it's promoting up to the high school. Our building principals are working on various recognition programs for those students. At the middle school level, I believe it's going to be a virtual digital presentation. And I know that Mr. Farson and Mr. Warzencroft themselves have been putting in a lot of time to put that together to recognize and honor those students. At the lower levels, all of our primary level principals are collaborating together so that we can recognize our sixth grade students as well. Once we have more detailed information about all of those programs, we will make that available to the parents. Building cleanup and pickup of materials. This is something else that we've been looking for and preparing for. With the abrupt closure of the schools, we recognize that we have many students that may have left personal materials in the buildings, whether it's coats, hats, you name it. And we are working on a plan to provide those students the opportunity to come and pick up their personal items, both at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. We're actually getting close to finalizing those plans, and I anticipate a communication will be coming out before the end of the week. With the plans, we're very conscious of the need to have social distancing, and I do anticipate it'll look a little bit different at each major grade level, simply because of the age of the students as well as the size of the buildings. But I anticipate that that's going to be a spread out, staggered process as well to let parents, families come in and pick up materials. In addition to that, we also need to collect from our students textbooks and any other school-owned educational supplies other than Chromebooks. And we're in the process of developing a system for that as well. And again, that'll include social distancing. And again, I anticipate that being staggered as well. In terms of the Chromebooks that I just mentioned, we are going to have those available and with our students and have our students keep those over the summer. And I know in talking to student groups, they were very appreciative to be able to have those through the summer. We are discussing the possibility of having some voluntary supplemental activities available to students to help keep them academically engaged over the course of the summer. We'll have more information about that coming as we head into June. We also need to have our staff back into our buildings so they can shut down classrooms. And that's part of this overall planning process that we're putting together. We are going to require our staff, when they're in the building and they're in vicinities where they may be interacting with other individuals, that they do wear face masks and follow social distancing procedures. Obviously, if somebody is working within their office and nobody's there, they don't need at that time to have that face mask on. But if somebody comes in, they will need to wear the face mask. And we're preparing a communication to go out to our staff to inform them of that as well. We have purchased PPE materials as a school district, and we do have disposable masks available for staff that may not have one on their own. I have a feeling that most of our staff will probably, just like me, have their own that they made or somebody made for them. And we encourage them to wear those because it'll allow the masks that we purchased as a district to go that much further. Also, our custodial staff has actually been hard at work for several weeks now, deep cleaning our facilities. In talking with the health department, what they've asked before we have students or staff come back into the facilities that they are all deep cleaned. There's going to need to be a follow-up cleaning, obviously, after we have the students and staff in the buildings. I really owe a lot of gratitude to our custodial staff because they are putting in a lot of work. I actually just saw a story on the news this morning about appreciating the custodial staff and what they do to keep people safe on a daily basis that you never think about. So they're really playing a vital role in terms of our students being able to get back in the buildings, close things up, and then get ready for the next school year.
Now, Erin, you had mentioned earlier in the meeting that the health department had mandated no students on school property until June 30th, but this is the exception, is that correct?
Well, the exception, which is written into the order, and that order is not coming from local, that's coming from the state health department, from Dr. Atkins. And what's written in the order is that school districts can work with their local health departments to get approval for plans for students to come back into the buildings if necessary. So our graduation plan to allow our students back in for those purposes has already been approved by the health department. Once we finish putting together the close of year material pickup plan, we will review that with the health department as well and make adjustments if necessary. And basically the health department is looking that the plan is following the guidelines for social distancing and things like that.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Staff end of year recognition. This is an important part of our year, and I know our community may not even realize that we do this, but at the end of each school year, we do celebrate the accomplishments of our staff over the course of the past school year, and we do a little awards presentation for the staff to celebrate the end of the school year. This year, obviously, we can't bring our entire staff together. So Amy Busby has been working hard again with Jared and Matt over at the television station to put together a virtual award show. And we're actually going to be videotaping the different pieces of that tomorrow afternoon over in the PAC.
Mr. Sable, along those lines, I know that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week as well. And I would just like to tell our teachers that we do appreciate everything that they've been doing. We know they've had to learn some new things to help with this online virtual classrooms. We appreciate them being flexible, taking the time for professional development, and keeping in constant contact with our students to do everything they can during this time. So thank you.
Return to school in the fall, and I don't have a lot to say here, but it's a question that I commonly get. So I wanted to make sure that the board had the information in case you get questions as well, and so we can share out what we're looking at. We don't know what's coming our way in the fall. What we do know is it's not going to be a typical start to the school year. Whether that entails being in online learning, some combination of online learning, or having our students returning and having social distancing, or even returning to a more normal start of the school year, it's still not going to be a typical start of the school year. So our curriculum department is working on various plans, so we're prepared early on. And which plan we implement is going to be dependent upon where we're at in terms of social distancing and gathering come the end of August. We will communicate out as soon as we have information of what that's going to look like. One thing that I do want to note is I just said that even if students can return in a typical fashion, it's still not going to be a typical start to the school year. And the reason why is because it's important that we account for the time that has been spent doing virtual learning through the course of this school year. So we're already discussing avenues to make sure our students are on pace with the material that they need to cover in all their classes, and provide them with the appropriate supports if they're not, to get them there. So like I said, we are already talking and planning about the fall, and most of our summer is going to be dedicated towards those efforts. And the last thing on, yep.
Thank you for mentioning that. I don't know about some of the other board members, but I have gotten a few questions from parents asking if I know anything about what the fall looks like. So I do appreciate you mentioning that, letting us know the district is working on it. And as you mentioned, so much of it depends on what is going to happen. A lot of it's going to be out of our control, and what is going on with the virus and what the governor ultimately decides can be done.
And the last discussion item for tonight is bylaw 150, which did go through the policy committee. It's here for discussion, and it's in relation to the Board of Education organizational meetings. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kwolek.
And I'll let Rob and Becky jump in if they'd like to. So you guys have a copy of this. We sent the board the entire policy with the options, but the policy committee selected the options we felt were most appropriate. The biggest change in this policy is due to the law on career center appointment. And so that is under 157, which would be the last page of the policy. So if you look at the last page of the policy, it really discusses the career center. So the policy committee, you know what, let me present for you. Maybe that'll make it easier for everyone. Can everyone see that okay? Can you guys see that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the major change to this policy. We sent the whole piece or bylaw, I apologize, to the board, but this is the major change. We renamed JVS Medina County Career Center because that's what it goes by. And so the committee picked preference will be given to interested board members who otherwise meet the statutory qualifications. So if you remember, this is back when, and Rob can probably speak more to this, and Becky, when they changed who qualifies to serve on a board. And so if you guys want to have some discussion about that, but I think our policy committee felt comfortable maintaining the current status. Again, we're just trying to maintain keeping with the law in terms of who's eligible to serve on a career center board. I don't know if you guys have any questions about other sections of the policy, but again, this is the section that brought it to the policy committee.
So Chris, this means that, say one of us are no longer on the Medina City School District Board of Education, we could still sit on the Career Center
Correct.
Board of Education?
Correct. And Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how Brunswick City Schools does it.
Yes, I mean, our board is chosen generally to appoint, initially, I think we appointed board members that had the business qualifications that they had at the beginning of 2014 that they were requiring. And then, and some districts chose to appoint like Brunswick chose to appoint all 3 of their members that weren't board members at that point. Brunswick now has 1 board member and 2 non-board members that are appointed. One of them is a graduate of the Career Center, and the other owns a car dealership, and he's very great with kids and does a lot of extra classes and so forth on finance with kids. But anyway, Medina has always chosen in the past to continue to appoint board members. We could change that. This still allows us to appoint an individual who is not a current board member, but these terms are 3-year terms, whereas when you get elected, they're 4-year terms to the Medina board. So these are not, these people are, if you appoint somebody, then they're not elected. But we've chosen, I guess, as a board to continue to appoint board members, but we don't have to do it that way in the future. But there was a period of time of where you had to get your resume and then have the legal counsel for the Career Center certify that they felt that you had met the criteria for the business necessities that they had back in the beginning of 2014. That requirement's gone away. But at that time, they were trying to get more business representation on those boards. And the Career Center has an incredible community. They have several different community boards that meet throughout the year, depending on which department it is. And Mr. Chrisman does a great job of keeping that. So even through those other groups. So it does go on, I guess, is what I didn't want to say. It doesn't go on. There's a lot of interaction with the business community. Thanks.
Did the remaining board members have a chance to take a look at this already? Are there any other questions?
I did have one other question. That the committees that we typically appoint the board members to, I didn't see the list of committees. I just saw that it was, like the finance committee, curriculum committee,
Those are superintendent committees.
Okay.
And this would be a bylaw, so you wouldn't want to list those here, because if you ever changed a committee, then the board would have to do 2 readings of the bylaw and repass it.
That was my thought on that. I just wanted to confirm that that's why they didn't show there, because of those. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. No problem. And so we're bringing this to you tonight just to have the discussion, and then our hope would be to have a first reading at the May regular meeting, and then the second reading, and hopefully pass the bylaw at the June meeting.
Okay. And policy committee is meeting on Wednesday, I believe. So after this, if any of the board members would have questions or comments or anything, please feel free to reach out to us and we can discuss it at our policy committee meeting on Wednesday.
So Becky, let me ask you, the rec center is a little different, but would that be considered an ad hoc committee?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure, because it's carved out through our I mean, that's our joint operating agreement, so it kind of supersedes some of this.
That was right. It's required through the JOC, as well as I believe the Access Committee is also a requirement through that. So they require board representation.
It's not.
That makes it an ad hoc committee, though. I think it's a. I mean, under the definite ad hoc, just as like a given topic that you put a group together to have a committee about. Those are ongoing committees, so I think they would fall under a committee assignment. But
the rec center wouldn't fall under this bylaw because of the JOA.
Well, I guess my question is turning to the tables. Is there anything inconsistent with what we do with appointment to the rec center? Because I'm not sure that this would be inconsistent with that.
It's not. You're right. It's not.
My only point was that it maybe wasn't an ad hoc committee. That's all. Is what I was saying.
When we reviewed this, we tried to take a look at what we are doing right currently to make sure that the policy is consistent with our current practice.
Okay. Okay. Concur.
And if there's no more discussion, that's our last agenda item for the work session.
Any further discussion on any? No? Okay. We've now moved to the public participation of the meeting. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public participation from all other attendees. Please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. So I will ask Amy if there are any public participation.
There is, outside of some really great comments about graduation, Mr. Harrison, there's a question from Mary Rose. She's asking, how are participation-based classes handled? Typically, these are fine arts such as band, choir, orchestra, and arts.
Mr. Sable, would you like to address that or have Tina?
No, honestly, I'm not sure I really understand the question. Tina, do you?
So at K-5, the art, music, and PE classes that are offered are optional. Those are things that students can do if they, if they have time to do it, if they are able to do it. 6 through 12 students will still be getting a grade for those courses, so those courses are not optional.
So Tina, how are the gym teachers, how are they creating assignments? Are they requiring students to submit videos of them perhaps doing 10 jumping jacks or something like that?
I see Becky and I are both clicking because we both have kids in phys ed right now. I'll let you go. Tina.
No, you guys go ahead.
I'll speak first. I do have a middle schooler who is in PE and choir, and yes, he has to take photographs of whatever the assigned activity is. Usually there's a cardio, there's a skill, there's usually a third one, and he has to take a photo to prove that he did it, as well as then explain what it is he was doing and what he was learning from that particular activity. And then choir as well, there's exercises that they are supposed to be doing that they have to submit that they performed. I don't know if that's any different for you, Chris.
No, and I can't say enough about our teachers. I think it's incredible the phys ed and choir and elective things my kids have been doing, both at the high school and middle school level. It's been phenomenal.
I agree.
Mine at Quagget has put in a lot of miles. She did get a lot of exercise.
I do know that my junior for his art class, he attempted to make homemade clay. There was the option to either go buy it or to make homemade clay, and he took his attempt at that. We found out that old flour does not rise. So round two, second trip to the store, or the first trip to the store, turned out okay, but then ultimately cracked. So off he went to Walmart to buy the other clay to make his animals. So, and so that is as far as art classes at the high school. So that is happening there.
And I know I've seen some of the elementary classes as well. And I know that Mr. Brinker at Canavan, he had students tapping out rhythms and then videoing themselves and sending that. So they've been I really have been impressed with what the teachers have been doing as well. Great activities, very engaging for kids.
Speaking of the elementary art teachers, I want to give a shout out to Chauncey Witter, who created her own little art library outside. So it is stocked full with art supplies. If any student is in need, they can wander over there and take a look. And it operates just like the little libraries that are up for around the community. So shout out to her for coming up with that. That was amazing. Thank you.
Other than that, those are the only questions. So thank you.
All right. At this time, I am going to make a motion to move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, compensation of a public employee or official, and for preparation for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. And there will be no action taken after executive session.
Second.
Mr. Chambers? Okay.
I don't see him on here.
There you are.
Yeah, it got stuck somewhere. So, yes, Ms. Pavlik.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Hilberg.
Aye.
Ms. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Skidmore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yep, just remind everyone it's the other link.
Yes. Okay.
And I think